Hello, welcome to the Monday edition of the NBA Betting Show. With me, as always, celebrating the Eagles' victory from New York or New Jersey, we've got Matt Mauser. Caring less about football or the Eagles, we've got Mike Lockey. And just a little bit happy with the end results yesterday, I'm Mike G. We're going to stay with the Philly motif and talk about the Sixers first today. Matt, what are we looking at for the Sixers?
Yeah, well, the celebrating the Eagles thing from New York, New Jersey is actually kind of relevant. The Empire State Building, they had Eagles colors on it. I can actually see that from outside my apartment. So, yeah, I feel like I'm happy because I've got Eagles futures. Most people around me are not happy about that.
Yeah, that's a very weird one. How did they land on that?
I don't know.
It's so odd.
The Eagles people stormed whatever.
Did they just hate
room.
KC? Like, it seems like a weird, I feel like they would hate the Eagles more than anyone.
They do. I guess it got hijacked somehow.
The backlash is actually more.
Is it just because they're the same as Jets colors? Is it just a coincidence?
No.
Yeah, that's right. They're celebrating the Tom Brady or the Aaron Rodgers rumor.
Yeah.
Yes.
Celebrating Nathaniel Hackett. So I guess you were going to use this as a segue to talk about more Philly sports because we've got some relevant things.
Yeah.
I guess we should recap the game from Saturday a little bit where Embiid went absolutely crazy, and we kind of started talking about this off air. Like the combination of Embiid's game versus Jokic and then his whatever Eagles celebration he may have been doing yesterday.
He was definitely in attendance at the game. I saw a picture of him on the sidelines hanging out with Kevin Hart. Look, if I were a betting man, I'm going to guess he had quite a few adult beverages last night. He probably did some celebrating. I'm going to guess a home game against Orlando, even though Orlando is very live against some of these top teams and has a really awkward, impressive resume for how few wins they have. They don't need Embiid to beat Orlando today, I don't think.
Yeah,
so
they also play Orlando
again.
again. The next Philly game is another home game against Orlando on Wednesday. It kind of makes sense that he would sit one of them anyway. Like it probably took a lot for him to play the Jokic game. That must have been, regardless of any weird Eagles stuff, that must have been a pretty physically taxing game for him. His usage rate for that game was really high. He was taking every shot down the stretch. So my lean also is that he doesn't play, but I think we can never be sure. And Doc Rivers is never going to give us a straight answer on this.
I agree with that.
So for betting purposes, we don't have a ton of value either way. Like we've got a pretty good Philly edge at -9 if he's in. If he's out, we basically don't have a bet. Like we'd have 1.5 to 2 point edge on Orlando the other way. So
3.5 points is all he's worth today.
Yeah, because it's on the fringes of garbage time blowout run anyway. And Embiid's only worth 4.5 in a normal context. Because Montrezl Harrell is good, and Embiid's player rating of 7.4 is then scaled for his minutes load, which is not as high as some of the other best players in the league.
Right.
Embiid plays in the low to mid-30s.
Harrell plays 18 minutes anyways, right?
Yeah, but then he gets, if Embiid's out, we're going 28 for Harrell, maybe 10 for Paul Reed. Maybe there are lineups where it's Tucker or Thibault playing center. And it is a lot worse, but Harrell actually rates well. So the extra Harrell minutes make up for a lot of it. But this is mostly because Embiid's minutes are not as high as, let's say, Embiid is worth about as much to the spread as Fred VanVleet, even though he's a much better player because he's got a better backup and VanVleet also plays more of the game. So it's those two reasons. That's why. But he's also worth a little less today because the garbage time points are not worth it. The players are not worth as much when we're on that backdoor cover territory.
Got it. The only thing I'd point out for potential Embiid playing is, as we talked about off air, he didn't guard Jokic in the second half. They had PJ Tucker guarding Jokic. Mm-hmm. So I'm not saying that he wasn't playing D, but he was not expending a lot of energy on the defensive end. He was guarding Aaron Gordon, and Gordon was doing a lot of backdoor cuts, but it's not like banging against Jokic or dealing with all the Jokic offense. So that has nothing to do with how many adult beverages he may have shared to Kevin Hart, but I don't think he's too taxed from that game, even though he did have high usage rate and did sweep all of our prop bets.
Mike G led the team in all the Embiid overs that day, and we cashed quite a few tickets, and And we also got that MVP bet in. That line has moved quite a bit. So
yeah, I think the market is now
good call by
efficient.
us.
I think the market is now efficient again. I think it is fair to say Embiid is probably ahead of Luka. Like, that game was so relevant. It was on ABC. It was against the front runner. He had a huge game. The team won. There is a shot the Sixers could wind up ahead of the Celtics in the standings. I still think that is a long shot, but his probability of winning, like, there are more ways he can win it now.
Yeah,
it's still Jokic in first, but I think he's ahead of Luka Doncic now.
Agree with all those things, and thrilled that we got a plus 700 right after that game. That was again, I was just celebrating.
I was surprised to still see that line.
I was celebrating the game and our props winning, and Lockie reminded, hey, can we? Because I think that one was at Bet Rivers, so got that in a plus 700 before it moved down quite a bit. The one thing on the props. And yeah, part of this is victory lap, but also I feel good about what our process was here. We talked about it on air. We did look at the stochastic projection, which was right around that 31.5 or 32.5, what the line was. The way we played it, as discussed on air, we bet advanced odds. So we had some at over 36.5, over 40.5, over 42.5, over whatever the last one was, or 45.5 was at less 1,000. So that was good. The one that we also bet that I'm disappointed I didn't mention it on air because I didn't think.
As soon as you mentioned this one off air, I was like, yes. Yeah,
we bet Embiid over 2.5 turnovers, which to me was the layup of all layups. Even though it was heavy juice, we knew he was going to be forcing the action, and obviously he played really well. But the 2.5 turnover line I thought was a gimme. So that one cashed as well. He had 5 early, ended up with 6 total. Nice. So, as we talked about on the last show, we don't want to go too overboard with props or too overboard with conviction plays like this. But the fact that the projections were solid, the advanced odds were pretty good at each of those levels. And then there was just the added extra narrative things of the MVP race, the snub from All-Star Game. A lot of forces came together. So it was nice to have good process, good conviction, and good results. We haven't got all 3 of those in a while. So it's nice to have all 3.
Yeah.
All right. So for this game, this is just if Embiid plays, there's a Philly bet. If not, then there's no bet.
It could be a small Orlando bet. It's not going to be big in either direction unless the line has already moved before we find something out. So I think if Embiid is out, we'll probably get it like 2 hours or so before game time. But if he's in, we're not going to get it confirmed until he warms up. Because Embiid, when Embiid is a game time decision, he basically always plays. Like, if he warms up, he'll play. But if he doesn't warm up, he's not playing. So we kind of get a tell maybe an hour to 2 hours before the game. And the lines will start shifting once we've gotten it. But there is also a chance they just rule him out early. So if that happens, obviously, then he's out. So I'm not really sure what we want here. I think most of what I would want to see for this game is for them to drag it out long enough that player props show up on other guys. And if I see those, I'll just tweet them because it's hard to give recommendations. We don't have any lines available. So that's really it for this game. Like, we'll look for player props if they are available at some point in the day. And it could mean unders on guys if he's in. It could mean overs on guys if he's out. And it would be basically everyone else on the team because his usage rate is so high. It does have an impact on everybody else, even guys who play different positions. But I think that's enough for this game. We have several games with a lot happening. So we'll just go in order, I think. The next one here is Brooklyn. And it was one of 2 strangely timed tweets that I had yesterday because I put this one out about how the Nets should be favored even if no Lakers are sitting, and then we found out LeBron and Davis were sitting. So that was totally out of nowhere. I mean, maybe I should have been more ready for this update because coming off that overtime loss in Boston, the Lakers have a back-to-back at the Knicks and at the Nets. This is the front end, though, so it is pretty weird. They just ruled them out a day in advance for the front end of the back-to-back, especially given where the Lakers are in the standings right now. Like, they want to win, and there's no tanking for them, as we've talked about. They don't have their own draft pick. So all of the incentives are around them winning. So the Nets have gone from +1 to -9. Congratulations to anyone who was able to get any real money in on the Nets at that point. They should win this game. I got a small bet in, but it was hard because most books didn't even have lines for this at the time that we got the news. But right now, we still potentially have an edge on Brooklyn if Ben Simmons plays. And we don't know yet. We don't know that yet. We never know what's going on with him, really. Like, I'm going to stop trying to guess where he, like, what his chances of playing or not playing are, because it's so random when he decides to play or not.
Well, what's the supposed injury?
Knee soreness. They're still blaming on that.
Yeah. It's him not being happy with his coach calling him out. But anyway, at least I'm not bitter. All right. Is that it for LA Brooklyn?
Yeah. So it's like a small bet on Brooklyn if it's like it's like a half unit to 3/4 unit bet on Brooklyn if he's in. I kind of think he's not going to play, but I don't really feel strongly. You know, they're calling it knee soreness, and as we know, there's probably not much wrong with his knee. And if he were mentally okay, he'd probably already be listed available. So it's a murky situation. But if he's out, it's just nothing. Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Okay. We again have to talk about our Sacramento Minnesota game. I do want to mention the Cavs game from yesterday also, but we'll save that till the end, I think, because that doesn't relate to today's games at all. But the other thing that happened Saturday is Minnesota won again. And we ended up with pretty strong value there because Gobert and Edwards were both questionable. Those are not real questionable tags.
Yeah,
basically
they
ever.
Played again. Shocking.
Yeah, right? The two guys that always play. Gobert has been more of a recent phenomenon because there was a stretch there where they were listing him and he wasn't playing, but now it's a new trend and we've now got 4 or 5 games in a row where he's been listed on the injury report and just plays. Edwards is not listed, but Gobert is. I am including him here. I'm not really sure why. I think he's 90% to play. But I just don't have as much information as last time. Like in the prior games, we were getting post-game updates where Gobert himself was like, I feel good, like I'm ready to go. I didn't see anything after this game, so just maybe like based on my own lack of knowledge of the situation, there could be something else going on with him. But I still think he's very likely to play. At some point today, I may see one of those quotes and then I'll just remove his name. He should be in. But this game, we do have some edge. The +1.5, I don't really think is available anywhere. So at +1, this is like a 2.5 point edge around a 0. Like it's not a super exciting bet at +1. But for futures, this game is once again very, very important. So we've been talking about how Minnesota is becoming a pretty strong bet to make the playoffs, and Sacramento is the opposite. I think that Minnesota line is still the same. I'm pulling up Bet Rivers on my phone now just so we can double check that. But yeah, where are we? +195, which I think is wild. Like that's the line still. This line hasn't moved in 3 games since they lost to Houston, and they've beaten Memphis, New Orleans on the road, Sacramento at home. And if they beat Sacramento again, like the Kings are potentially a team where we're talking about who's the 8 and who's the 9. I know the Kings have had a great season. They're like 2 games ahead of the Timberwolves. 27-25 for Minnesota, 27-21 for Sacramento. So it's 4 in the loss column, but it's 2 games. These teams are not that far apart. If Minnesota, the thing about like Bet Rivers, Barstool, Sugar House, Unibet, they will not move this line immediately after the game's over. So if you've already bet this, I'm not suggesting adding now. I'm suggesting adding if Minnesota wins again. This is a game with very significant futures betting implications. And then on the other side, we have Sacramento around like +3 to 350 to miss the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm seeing a 350 now, which is, I think, a better line than what it was before the last loss, which confuses me a little bit.
I get. Is it a different site? I mean, there's just different stuff.
Where I bet it the last time was on Bet Online.
And they've raised the odds. Yeah, that's pretty weird.
25 cents better now, which seems a little strange.
Are people laying -400?
I mean, that's the only explanation, right?
Yeah, that's pretty weird. We do have an Embiid shoot-around update, by the way.
Which direction?
He's shooting free throws after shoot-around. Seems like a positive indicator, but not a major indicator of any kind. Yeah.
I mean, if he was hungover, he wouldn't be a shooter.
That's true. We can rule out the alcohol part of it. I think probably based on this.
I think this is a very bullish update.
I was gonna say I'm calling it Embiid in.
Yeah, maybe the overriding variable here is he wants to win MVP, and if he keeps playing, he doesn't want to sit out.
Yeah, if he follows up another after that monster game on Saturday, if he follows it up with another big statistical game and with a win, they're going to keep talking about him as MVP, or pushing Jokic that much further. So
I'll keep an eye on over here if the lines start to move at all, like if we get the screen blinking. I'm queuing up -9 in the bet slip though, for sure.
Okay.
I think we should be ready to bet that. It's only like a half unit bet anyway, but yeah, it'd be worth having if he's in for sure. So on the Sacramento-Minnesota game, Kings to make play-in bets are going to start looking interesting. Although the way the Western Conference is set up, there's so much, it's so fluid between the 12 and like the 3 that I'm kind of off on play-in bets in general right now. Like I don't think anyone, it might be true that nobody is plus EV for that market at the current moment, because there's so many teams that may or may not wind up around there. So, like
these are high variance spots for sure.
They're just like in the East, it's so different because there are 5 or 6 teams in the East that like have almost no chance to be in the play-in tournament, and then there's like another 3 or 4 teams at the bottom of the standings that also have almost no chance. So we're really only talking about 5 or 6 teams in the Eastern Conference where there's even a relevant possibility of making the play-in tournament. But in the Western Conference, basically anyone besides Denver and Memphis can be in the play-in, excluding Houston and San Antonio. Right? I think that's it. Anyone could be in the play-in.
There's nobody else that's safe.
Yeah.
From not being in it. Yeah, and that's where I'm curious to see how even the Timberwolves bet. I passed on it the other day.
It doesn't matter. You can bet it at the same number now.
Right. Well, that's what I was saying. I'm curious to see how I feel about it if they win tonight. Mm-hmm. So I've just been hesitant for all the reasons we keep talking about around the trade deadline. Who's going to be buyers? Who's going to be sellers?
Right.
What things look dramatically different? But it's going to be tough to not get something on Minnesota to make the playoffs if they do win tonight, especially since Bet Rivers is kind of my go-to book in Virginia. So and knowing they don't change it, that's an easy one to get in. So anyway, we'll keep an eye on it.
Yeah, and then Sacramento at plus 300 or more to miss if they lose this game, because Sacramento is not as good as the top versions of other teams around them. Like they have they're more stable than some of these other teams because they don't have the veterans with the injury track record. But the best version of the Lakers are better than the Kings. The best version of the Clippers are better than the Kings. Those are teams they could certainly play in the play-in tournament, and they would be underdogs to both of them probably.
Yep. There's definitely flaws in 538, but when I'm looking at it and I'm seeing Kings 58% chance of making the playoffs, Timberwolves 56% chance of making the playoffs, finishing record 1 game apart from each other, and you're seeing these numbers plus 200, plus 190, whatever, and then plus 350 the other way. I think these are just like some of the value that's popping right now.
It's hard to ignore. Yeah, there's an inefficiency in the market for sure. When does 538 have Cat coming back?
Are you able to... I can check that on my other screen. Hold on. Okay. I don't want to.
I also want to
say it looks like somewhere around 3 weeks from now, right around the All-Star break. Yeah. I think that's a pretty reasonable estimation of his timeline.
I think it sounds very reasonable.
Yeah. I don't know that it could be a little bit longer in reality, but it's not going to be, he's not missing the rest of the year. They're going to have him back at some point.
How long is he going to last? That's obviously who knows. I mean, I feel like the guy's always injured, and maybe he's just one of those softies that doesn't have the grit.
What's real interesting too is, again, Minnesota. I'm not looking at it, but what's their last 10? Probably 7-3 in their last 10.
Something
games.
Like that.
Yeah. So if they keep winning, and then Cat comes back, and they they lose 2 games in a row, it's gonna there's gonna be all kinds of talk about. I mean, again, the trade already didn't make sense. It didn't make sense on day 1. It didn't make sense after game 1 or game 10. If he comes back after they've been winning and then go on any kind of a 500 or less run, be very interesting to see what happens. So, anyway.
So just one more thing on this before we go back to games from today. there's two teams here where their probabilities are likely to be dramatically altered by the deadline. One is the Lakers, because as we've talked about, and I think this was more like, I was disagreeing with this in part, but I think I've come around that the Lakers can improve their team a lot because they have so many extremely negative players that just to get a couple average guys into their rotation around LeBron and AD, it will make them a much, much better team. Like just an addition of Miles Turner and Buddy Hield would make them a lot better because then they don't have to play Damian Jones / Thomas Bryant. They don't have to play Troy Brown. They don't have to play Lonnie Walker, who is like a -3.5 player rating. Less minutes of Westbrook. Maybe they even get rid of Westbrook. So
I was going to say that, yeah, to get Hield and Turner. Well, so actually, I meant to message you about this. So Turner signed the 2-year extension over the weekend. Can he be traded?
I actually don't know. I missed that, so I guess we'll have to look at that again.
Yeah, he signed a 2-year, $60 million extension that also.
That sounds like a kind of thing somebody needed to have done before they traded for him. In my opinion,
that's why I wasn't sure. Like, the first reports I read was now he doesn't have to worry about the trade talks. He's locked in, blah, blah, blah. And my second reaction is what you just said, Mike, is like, well, wait, does this now people can trade for him knowing he's under contract? They don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, like,
I guess
look, obviously the big issues with trades is you don't know, like if the guy's on expiring contract, like, do you want to give up any real assets for a rental player? A team like the Lakers, absolutely not. So this actually, I think, makes his trade value, it's more defined now, right? So there's just
I agree as long as he can be traded. And that's why I tried looking it up and I couldn't find it. Because I know the rules are a little different. Like when guys sign the max contracts or they sign the 4 or 5 year extensions in the offseason, they can't be traded, I think, until December 15th. There's a big issue, whatever the timing was of when LeBron opted in. He opted in, he missed by 5 days the ability to be traded. Like he cannot be traded in season.
Okay.
And if he had signed if he had signed 5 days earlier, there would have been that option where like he could have forced himself potentially as a trade. Now, there's also thinking because LeBron doesn't do anything really by accident on this kind of stuff. Maybe he did it so he would be forced, quote, to stay in LA because that's what he really wanted. I don't know. But I'm just saying, I think this Miles Turner thing is relevant because he's been one of the big trade pieces in just about every discussion.
So,
and I'm sure there's a way to look it up.
I can't tell if the reason. So a bunch of the articles are saying, and there's one thing on Utah here, and then we'll go back to today after this Lakers thing. A bunch of the articles are saying the Lakers can't trade for him now. I'm not sure if that's because he's getting paid too much where they couldn't fit him within their salary cap, or it's because he's totally ineligible for any team. But either way, it doesn't sound like the Lakers are going to be able to get him. So we'll find out what it actually means for every other team. But nonetheless, the Lakers can still trade for somebody, even if it's not Miles Turner. The Jazz are the other team where the playoff odds are just not correct because they are going to get rid of somebody. And it's just a matter of how much worse do they get. So the Jazz actually have longer playoff odds right now than Minnesota even, but there's significant downside for Utah if they trade away Conley, Clarkson, Kelly Olynyk, which are probably, and then Beasley, Vanderbilt don't matter as much, but those three guys, and especially Conley, if they get rid of him, like their playoff odds are going to tank a bit. Like it's almost priced into the market that they're going to trade Mike Conley. It was basically priced in from the beginning of the season, which is why we had all that Utah value. So we're going to be talking about Utah as a playoff bet if they either stay where they are or get better. But if they get significantly worse, then obviously this number is going to change. They won't be above 50% anymore.
I agree that Utah is more likely to downgrade than upgrade, but Danny Ainge also
we don't know for sure
to make excellent trades and just like completely dismantle the other team by accident just because they got an offer too good. So like, yeah, sure, you definitely could lose Conley, lose Olynyk. There's all these guys that are definitely able to be traded. What if they're just getting a good guy back? It's like really hard to say.
They're not going to be able to get someone as good as Mike Conley, but you could see them trading like Jordan Clarkson and then they replace him with Alex Caruso, who's better or something. You know, they do something interesting where we actually think they're better. So we'll just have to see because we don't know.
Yeah, the other thing with Olynyk, I think, is a very likely piece to be traded for reasons that we've talked about numerous times on the show. Does that really hurt the Jazz that much?
No.
If Kessler's getting more minutes?
No. Kelly Olynyk is worth half a point. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, he's very valuable to many teams that need his skill set. But like, if that's the trade they make, which also is still very likely. Yeah, that's one. You're right. It really comes down to Conley.
Yeah, because Olynyk is valuable on a different team, but he's not that valuable on Utah, where not only do they have Kessler, they also have Jared Vanderbilt on the bench. These guys are only... Kessler's better than Olynyk, and Vanderbilt is only a little bit worse than Olynyk. So, yeah, it's not... Kelly Olynyk is not a big deal for Utah. He might be a big deal for a different team.
Perhaps we should have a pre-deadline show with what it's. There's a novel.
We're just going to sprinkle it in a little bit to every show. This one a bit more than most, but yes, maybe we should. We will let people know when that's happening.
Right. Then February 10th, we're going to wake up and say, "Oh, we forgot to do the."
We forgot about the trade deadline show. Yeah.
All right. Moving on.
Moving on.
Let's
Luka Doncic time. Okay. I'm pretty sure he's out. We had talked about right when he got hurt that we thought his target return date would be the game after this one, which is February 2nd, so Thursday. They're playing a home game against the Pelicans, divisional opponent, relevant team for them in the playoff race. Utah was a game that mattered too 2 nights ago, but he was too hurt to play that game. So he got injured against Phoenix on Thursday. Saturday was just too soon. Like his ankle was probably too swollen for him to play that game. Now he probably could play. Like, I think if it were a playoff game tonight, Luka would be out there. But it's a home game against Detroit.
Looking like Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. I think he would do it if the game mattered. But this is home versus Detroit. So I would be very, very surprised if Luka plays tonight. And because of that, like, there's just nothing really here. I mean, the market almost all the way has this priced in. Because if Luka's out, we have the fair line at like 7.3. And it's already down to 8.5. We have a huge bet on Dallas if he's in, but I just don't think he's going to be in. So prop-wise, like if anything for Dinwiddie or Hardaway or whoever shows up, I'm not waiting for confirmation. I'm just going to start placing bets on those guys, but I don't think we're going to get them. Like Luka probably will get ruled out for this game in the afternoon. I don't think they take it to a game time decision. But if you are able to find a Dinwiddie points prop below 20 or an assist prop below 7 or anything like that, I think there's a really strong likelihood Luka is out. So I'm not going to try to time the news. Like I just think he's going to be out. And if I can get anything on Dinwiddie, I'm going to get it. And depending what the lines are, that'll dictate how much to bet. So I can't really say like it's a 5-unit bet on Dinwiddie or it's a 2-unit bet. We don't know what the numbers are. But if I see them, I'll tweet them. But I think we're going to end up with nothing here, honestly. Like, I just don't think they're going to post them. I think the market knows he's out. I think he will be back on Thursday against New Orleans. So for future purposes, I don't think it's a big deal that he got hurt. I think he will be back next game. I just don't think he plays this game.
Got it.
Yeah, but we're showing 4.8 point edge if he's in. So if I'm wrong, then we're making Dallas bets for sure.
Okay.
All right, we have one more game with all the if-then scenarios. We're saving it for last. Before we get to this one, though, yesterday we did have one other good thing happen where we got validated pretty strongly on Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. So on Saturday...
I was upset I missed this one. I really just like woke up. We didn't do a show. I feel like we talked about
it the day
Saturday.
Before. Yeah.
I was so mad I missed this one.
Because on Saturday, what I'd said was, if I see anything Cavs -5 or less, I'm just betting it because I think we're likely enough to get this happening.
I even saw 6.5 early on and just didn't. The only thing I thought was, I'm just going to stay away because Clippers have been playing good recently, and I don't know about Mitchell, and like I just like stayed away. And then like as soon as you posted the second, go ahead with this tweet.
This was literally down to the second of when the news broke. This was 1:18, I think. And literally, I was hitting
notifications within 1 second of each other.
Yeah, I was hitting send and they got ruled out.
And then, like, the news of both guys getting ruled out came instantly. I was like, "Oh, cool."
I wish I had put this tweet out, a minute earlier because then people might have been like, "Oh, right, that. Let me log in." But the line had already moved from -5 to -8 before they got ruled out because Donovan Mitchell was trending towards playing. But still, we had the projected line for this game at 12. So -8 was like I bet it at 5 and then I bet it again at 8. And then the Cavs won by like 30 or something. Yeah, the Cavs have really not been kind to us recently.
It wasn't a 20-point game at any point except in the first quarter.
Yeah, they were up like 19 at the end of the first, and then from there they were up 20 or more the entire game.
Yeah.
I think they were up 40 at one point.
I believe that's accurate.
Yeah.
So let's talk about now how this translates to today.
It doesn't really. It's more just like,
want to make sure we got it in.
this is just like for people who are like, what are these guys doing? Maybe they're new. They haven't watched us talk before. It's like we're trying to predict injury news in advance a lot of the time. And I think we're pretty good at it. Like
we're trying to beat closing line value.
Yeah.
And, you know,
but like, and
it's
beating closing line value because we have a better sense of if players are playing or not than the market does. Sometimes we're using the market as evidence. Like sometimes the market is telling us something, but then we're applying it even better than the market is applying it. So this was just an example where it worked. It hasn't worked that much lately where like we have been right, but then the team just lost. So I just wanted to highlight one where the team didn't lose.
Yep.
Okay.
Cool.
So before we get back, because we have other injury news today. So here's the big one. We did this whole lengthy discussion on Nurkic and Hart and compounding effect and the rebound specifically, that thing. The Raptors had 15 offensive rebounds against the Blazers the other night with both those guys out. It actually like it certainly was a thing. Would the rebounding advantage have played out if those guys were in? I have no idea. But clearly, lineups with Shaedon Sharpe and Trendon Watford in instead of these two guys are way worse as like in terms of rebounding. And Drew Eubanks can't stay on the court. Like he's just not good enough. So they have to play small.
Got it. Yeah, we actually talked about that as you know, there was a question about when teams match up with certain big strength against weakness, what can you really do? And we did call that one out that the offensive rebounding crash rate is something different.
Right.
They could be telling guys to crash more often than they normally would. And I don't know if it was strategic or it just worked out, but clearly this is one where that edge was something, especially when two of the best rebounders on a bad rebounding team were out. So
yeah, I dismissed this one pretty aggressively when I saw it on Twitter, and even when we were talking about it on the show, I was dismissing it. And I still think in general we don't care about this. But in a very, very extreme case like this one, where the two best rebounders on an already poor rebounding team are out, it may be something. But we didn't need that to have a bet here. We were showing a lot of edge on the Raptors for that game anyway.
I struggle on how to make that actionable. I agree it's like it's interesting and I agree that it's noteworthy, but like I can't justify using that to take this from say a 1 unit bet to a 2 or 3 unit bet. I just don't like, and maybe that's a flaw on my part by being too narrow minded, but
I don't know either.
Without some sort of model, I can't find a way to make stuff like that actionable.
It would have been like a 1 3/4 unit bet, and instead I went like 2 1/4. I added like an extra half unit because.
And I think that's what we even said on the show. I think we said it gives a little more conviction, and then maybe it's an extra quarter, a half unit bet. So we're not saying that you just fall on things like that, but they're another, it's another arrow in the quiver. It just gives you a little bit more something to give you some more conviction.
Maybe rebounding is the only thing that kind of matters for this, because I'm trying to think of other stats.
No,
like
let's
just say there's a good stocks team against a really high turnover team. I'm not like using that. I don't think for those anything.
Matter enough either.
And like assists aren't going to do much, and scoring's not going to do much. I don't know. Like I get like if you have a team that's a massive rebounding, even we've played enough pickup ball, right? When one team has a clear rebounding advantage, it can be pretty massive. I just don't know how that's going to translate into our model.
Yep, I've been the small ball center on many teams that I've been on, and if the other team has a guy who's 6'4", it doesn't matter how well I play, like we don't win.
Yeah,
right. And if you want strategic basketball playing advice, who better to get it from than 3 white degenerate gamblers? Let's be honest. So
I don't see a problem with that statement at all. I agree with you.
I have a very. Do we have 1 minute to go off topic?
Yeah, we have to come back to Trae Young.
I do want to come back to Trae Young, but it's somewhat on topic that I want to bring it up. Have you guys watched this Purdue team play in college basketball at all? They have a 7'4" guy.
Oh, I have seen highlights of him.
Who is he was like shooting free throws well. He's got really good touch. I was just like, I watched, it was on early in the day yesterday, and I watched a little bit of this team. This dude put up like 39 and 13 and just absolutely dismantled Michigan State. Like, I haven't heard his name as an NBA prospect at all, but he looks really smooth.
Sounds like the next Walker Kessler, if I had to guess.
A lot of clunky, like a lot of guys that are gigantic when they play, they just feel awkward. They look clunky. They're not fluid at all. This guy, he really impressed me in a 1 game sample size. Do with that what you wish, but
yeah. I don't think we can bet anyone to be.
Be.
We can't bet anyone to be the number one overall pick because of the current year we're in. But if there are markets on later picks, we can talk about that at some point for sure. The only draft prop available right now is who's going to be number one and who's going to be number two, and the two guys there are both like minus 10,000.
I laid 1,200 on Wembanyama. I have done that so
minus
far. I laid 180 to win 15. That is a bet I have in the bet slip.
Yeah,
Probably the most
I don't have a problem with it.
Probably the most positive EV bet you've made all year.
That's just it's a small little ROI. Whatever, I'll take it.
Mm-hmm. All right, back to this game. So, Nurkic and Hart combined are probably worth about 4 or 4.5 points, which is like the same as Trae Young. If you add Nurkic and Hart, they're only 2.5, but there is compounding. Forgetting the whole rebounding thing, even if you just look at who replaces them in the rotation, there's significant compounding effect if you take two starters off the Blazers on a team where there's no depth. So you get really poor players that are filling in for them. So in the aggregate, they're worth about as much as Trae Young. And right now we have this as the fair line. So I think we react to the first news we get here and then react back the other way if something changes. So in terms of the spread, if Trae were to get ruled out, Portland is a bet right now, 4-point edge. And then if Nurkic and Hart both got ruled out later, we would just bet Atlanta later and then have a middle. They would both be good value at different points in the day. But of course, this is Trae Young, and the thing we care about is the total more than anything. And fortunately, in this case, there was an opening total before we got the news that he was questionable, because a lot of the time what happens is we'll find out the player is downgraded and there's no opening line, and then we have no reference point as to what the total would have been if he were already confirmed active. In this case, though, it was 236.5. The line was up at FanDuel for like a second, and then this news came out. So the relevance here is the market is pricing him to play. Pretty much. I mean, maybe it'll go up slightly if he's in, but the market is mostly pricing this game as though Trae Young is available. And the spread also didn't really change from that either. It was -2 at the time. Now it looks like it's 2 or 2.5. This might be a fake questionable tag on Trae Young where just no one thinks there's any chance he's actually out. Or the market is just going to be wrong and we're going to have a huge amount of value on the under if he doesn't play. So one other thing that complicates this is Nurkic is pretty important for the under.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up.
Yeah, because we could get, the no center game happens where Justice Winslow or Nasir, I don't think it's Winslow, I think he's still out, but like Little or Grant is playing center against John Collins. And even without Trae, that's not ideal for an under bet. So what we really want, like the highest EV bet that could exist in this game is an under in the scenario where everyone plays except for Trae Young.
Yeah, Trae's out, Nurkic in.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to assume Josh Hart's neutral in this conversation, but I could be wrong there.
I don't know, but he's probably negligible enough that he's not the focus.
Yep.
He could be a point one direction or the other. I do think he's more of a defense first guy, but the Nurkic thing is so much more impactful because it'll affect how much Clint Capella plays. And Capella is really important for the under too. So we want as much Capella and as much Nurkic out there if we're betting the under in a scenario where Trae Young isn't playing. So if we get Trae downgraded, it's Blazers, it's the under, it's Hawks team total under for sure. And then if later in the day,
DeJounte Murray assists.
Right, those aren't available yet. No, we should certainly mention that too. You're right, because they could get posted. They could get posted at some point. But if Nurkic were to get ruled out after Trae, you could always hedge back some.
Yep.
So I wouldn't, even though we have this Nurkic question mark, if Trae is ruled out, that is more than sufficient to just bet as much as you can on the under. The total will come down by at least 5 points.
The game under and the Hawks team total for sure.
Yeah, and then if Nurkic got ruled out, you could hedge a little bit back because the line will probably have shifted at a certain point. One other thing to remind people of before we talk about Murray is that in these Trae Young cases, the trend that we've seen is, let's say he gets ruled out right now. The total is 237. It'll go off the board everywhere. It'll probably reopen at around 233 or 234. And then by tip-off, it'll be in the 220s.
Yep.
The lines
it'll
incrementally move.
the rest of the way.
So even if you were not there right when the news happens and you miss it, just wait till it reopens and bet it right away when it reopens, and then it's going to keep going. It may not always be the case that it works this way, but this is in general what's happened. So Trae Young is probably worth 10 points to the total, somewhere between 8 and 12. And if the line only moves 3 for him getting ruled out, then you certainly can still bet the under. But if the line reopens and it's already 8 points lower, then don't. So if Trae is out, I like anything under 233 or anything 233 or higher. I would like the under, and it's 237 right now. But then give or take a point or two because of Nurkic. We don't know that yet. Okay, so Murray is the other relevant thing here. And in games where Trae doesn't play, Murray does more of everything, but specifically passing. So we don't have any props on him, but they could get posted at some point. And Murray's lines would probably be, I'm just checking what Stochastic has. With Trae in, we're looking at like 19 and 6. With Trae out, we're looking at like 21 and 9. Maybe 8 or 9 assists somewhere. Probably a line of 8.5. So a Murray assist prop of over 5.5 in a context where Trae is not playing is going to win like 92% of the time. Like it's getting over 5.5 assists on Murray if Trae is not playing is a better bet than we've had on anything the entire season, just to put context behind that. Like it's probably on par with having Brooklyn +1 today.
Yeah, that's certainly something that'll be quite appealing. I just went down a little bit of a rabbit hole here. My instincts told me if I were a terrible rebounding team, I would not want to be playing against Capella and Okongwu. I don't know how to efficiently look up how good a team is in rebounding.
Yeah,
I did find on NBA.com that the Hawks are number 4 in the league in contested rebounds per game. So I think that's a better stat.
It's going to be really hard to even use that, though, because like Capella has missed a handful of games, and so has Collins. Like we don't even get. It's different every day, right? So the way the Hawks have rebounded for the season in any metric, that might just not even matter.
I am getting a little desperate here. It feels like Graspy to some degree, but I also think that those are really good rebounding players to have in the game, and maybe there's something there.
But if Nurkic plays, it does sort of mitigate a lot of that.
I agree with that.
And I have no idea if Nurkic or Hart is going to play. So, again, people may still have the notifications on from over the weekend. At Trailblazers PR is the Twitter account. Turn on push notifications. If there's an official designation that changes for any player, they will tweet it, obviously, in addition to Underdog. Kevin Chouinard for the Hawks will give us our... If there is a Trae Young shoot-around update, he will be there. Yeah. So those are our people. Yeah, this feels like a very standard game for us. We're waiting for Blazers news. We're waiting for Trae Young news. I don't want to spend too much time on the rebounding advantage thing just because it is a factor. It's just only like the 10th most important variable in this game.
I was trying to, like I said, trying, and I don't know what to do with it. I don't know how to make it actionable, but I thought it was at least interesting.
No, it's interesting for sure. It's just if we didn't have a Trae injury scenario in this game, then we could go more into the weeds, I think, like even more than we currently are. But Trae is so important that he's the focus. My gut, though, is he is going to play. Like, the market is pricing him to play, or at least very close to playing. So we don't have anything other than he is on the injury report for ankle soreness. They are not on a back-to-back. They played the Clippers on Saturday on the road. Their next game, I think, is 2 days from now. They are in Phoenix on Wednesday is their next game. So it could just be the kind of thing where, like, we're in this West Coast road trip. It's kind of taxing to have all these road games in a row. We'll just give them one off in the middle somewhere. That could be what's going on. But they also have a back-to-back. Like, they're coming up on a brutal part of the schedule where after this game, they're Wednesday in Phoenix, and then I'm pretty sure it's Thursday. Maybe I have this wrong. Wednesday in Phoenix, Friday in Utah, Saturday in Denver. That's the current schedule they're on. So they just went, home Clippers. This is the start of the road trip. At Portland, at Phoenix, at Utah, at Denver. This is game 1 of that. It makes the most sense for him to sit one of those two when they're in Utah and Denver, if they were trying to time that to give him a night off. But if his ankle's actually bothering him, then then it's a different story. Yeah. The fact that he's listed at all is relevant for sure. I do think he's going to play, but there's at least a 15% chance he doesn't play. So personally, I'm just going to be waiting for this the entire day. This is my day today, waiting for Trae Young updates. Yeah, not going anywhere.
All right.
I think that is the recommendation, honestly. Like, we've given all the if-thens of what to do if certain things break. You just have to be able to wait for this game. Like, there's nothing to bet right now. I do, though, like, if we're going to try to give a recommendation for the person who can't be attentive today, I think there is a disproportionate amount of upside just betting the game total under, because even if everything breaks wrong, you'll be able to hedge this for a small loss close to tip-off. Like, if you bet under 237 right now, and a tip-off the line is 238, you can just cash out for like a negative 10%. Or you can hedge it on an alternate line for a negative 5 or 10% or whatever. Like, you're not going to get burned that badly if you just hedge a tip-off if the news breaks wrong.
Yeah,
so I think
great. That way at least you get the upside if it breaks the right way, and you can just have a small loss if it doesn't. So that's great for the rest of the humans who can't do what Matt does throughout the day. Although Matt will try to update us when possible, so keep an eye on the Preaching Sense Twitter account throughout the day. Kevin Chouinard, we got Grizzlies PR.
Blazers PR today. Yeah.
Blazers PR. Okay.
Timberwolves PR for Rudy Gobert also. Yeah, those are the three.
Gobert.
Those are the three non-underdog accounts I'm getting push notifications from. There's also a Mavericks PR.
Gotcha.
For Luka. Yeah.
All right, and we'll throw our weekly joke in about Grizzlies PR. Wolves PR giving us the dinner update. So that's always important news.
Always.
Anything else for today?
I think that's it. There are, as far as I can tell, there's no back-to-backs for tomorrow, except for the Lakers. But because they're sitting their guys today, they will be back tomorrow.
Gotcha.
This is a rest game for LeBron and Davis, so they're not missing tomorrow's game at Madison Square Garden. They'll be playing. I think that covers it. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Good luck us tonight. Fly, Eagles, fly. We'll see you tomorrow, 10:15. See you guys.
Sounds good. See you.